again. Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. We have essentially two parts today. The first hour will be our webinar proper, where we'll learn how Gencat using Eurekos LMS managed to revolutionize their internal learning programs and actually measure them, measure the results, not just learning results, but actual business results in savings, in security, and much more. And then the second half, after an hour, will be our open Q&A, where our experts will be available to you for any questions, any deep dives, anything you would like to know or see to answer your questions. And with that, let's get right to it. While people are still trickling in a little, we'll start with a very short round of introductions. So let's just jump in. My name is Benjamin Seidel. I am from Chemmedia. I'm account manager and consultant and will be your host today. I also brought with me Dirk, who's also from Chemmedia. He's our VP of Sales and Consulting. And we'll start off the session today with a few things about why and how we can actually measure things that aren't only learning results, but actually drive our business to success. And that'll be our entry point for our full-on speakers today, who are Kevin and Barry from Gencat, as well as Nick. And with that, I'll give it over to you guys. Let's start with Kevin. Why don't you introduce yourself really quickly?
Good morning. My name is Kevin Hurley. So I'm the head of data analytics in Gencat. So I look after measuring the results of the programs that we administer and comparing them with real world results that we obtain from many sources. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Kevin. And next up, Barry.
Hi, I'm Barry Lyons. I'm the Compliance and Training Director at Gencat. We look after the road transport sector, and our primary focus would be on drivers, driver training, driver coaching, and that's our area of expertise.
Thank you very much. Very happy to have you. And last but not least, of course, we have Nick here as well from Eurekos Systems, the LMS provider that we're very happy to partner with and who also provided a solution for Gencat. Nick.
Yes, so hello, I'm Nick. I am the product owner, so the chief product owner. I've been doing this for 15 years, been responsible for the strategic development and all our activities against, trying to solve all kinds of process challenges that obviously is out there in the different industries. So we continue to do that, and we think that we have got a very flexible entry into this. So let's hear it from Gencat a little bit later.
Thank you very much, Nick. And without further ado, let's just jump right in there. We'll start with a little bit of a bird's eye view from Dirk, who's had many, many years of experience in the learning sector. And with that, Dirk, take it away. Why and how do we actually measure things here?
Thanks a lot, Ben. Yeah, I'm Dirk, or in Irish, Dirk. So we all know, as we met here today, that e-learning is able to deliver business results. Actually, I'm an e-learning enthusiast, so I'm doing this for 30-odd years. And I've seen this slide from Anderson Consulting, now Accenture, when they initially fired it up 1998. Since then, we all know that e-learning delivers business results. So the question is, what do we measure and how do we measure it? And Ben, if you can jump to the next slide. We all here pretty much concentrate on level 2. This is, by the way, Kirkpatrick model. I'm pretty sure that most of you are familiar with Kirkpatrick. And while we deliver e-learning to, let's say, different target user groups, we take care of measuring and certifying that the transfer occurs, that the transfer has happened, and that is very important for certification programs, for compliance stuff, but it's also the foundation to measure results. So did the training influence performance? And on the next slide, I'm introducing you to Lord Kelvin, who is famous for the saying, if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. And that's exactly what Barry and Kevin will walk you through in the next couple of minutes. It is, if you ask me, yeah, with my 30 years of experience, it's mind-blowing the way they tackled it and the way the Eurekos technology supported this. Yeah? And it's not common sense in the e-learning industry. It's not common sense in the organizations. And I'm pretty sure that you will learn a lot today how to tackle this complex topic. So I have the great pleasure to lead over to Kevin, who gives us an insight how Gencat did it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dirk. And let's just let this sink in for a second here. This graphic here, this research really from Anderson Consulting, now Accenture, a large and well-established consulting firm focused on business results, said this in 1998, 27 years ago. We need to measure things. We need to use training to deliver business results. And the audience, I'll ask you, how many of you in your organizations are actually measuring business results? And that's not because you're unable to, it's because maybe you haven't really found a solution for it yet. Maybe you do not have access simply. So making this business case to not just do training because you need to, because there's law there, it's a cost center, but to actually drive business results really brings you ahead. And this is what we'll see from both Kevin and Barry today. And with that, let's give it over to Gencat
Thanks,
and
Ben.
to Kevin. And before we begin, Kevin, just a very simple question. Who are Gencat? What do you do?
Well, Gencat are a road, as Barry mentioned earlier, we're a road transport compliance and training agency. So, you know, we look after fleet management for transport companies, and we look after data analytics for telematics data, which is telematics are systems that plug into vehicles and feed back certain KPIs about the vehicle that can give an indication of driver behavior and driver performance. So you can get data such as, you know, harsh brakes, fuel consumption, braking patterns, idling time. So there's a lot of different KPIs that you can get out of a vehicle that feeds back into a platform. Gencat look at that data and we report back to companies. And then we also design driver training programs for those companies. So that's largely what we do. My role in it is analyzing that data. I have a few data analysts working underneath me, and then we basically generate reports back to our clients on the performance and the results of the training programs that we deliver to them. So that's Gencat. Yeah, we still do classroom training. You know, we started off with classroom training many years ago. We still do classroom training. All of our trainers are usually drivers and transport managers as well, so they have that real world experience. You know, the drivers, they're not just listening to somebody who's learned everything theoretically. You know, like these guys have been out driving trucks, they know what it's like. So it's the same trainers that develop our online programs. We moved online a couple of years ago when we met Nick from Eurekos. So we made that change from classroom-based learning to online learning. And we've noticed a huge benefit and a lot of improvement in our training results from that. From that transition.
Improvements and results. Let's just take a closer look at a few examples of the most tangible numbers, and we'll dive a bit deeper into them later on.
Yeah.
But as we can see, there's a lot of numbers. But Kevin, why don't you take it away again? Because
There's
you essentially made these numbers happen with your
there,
team.
there's a few numbers. Yeah. There's a lot more numbers in our report, but we didn't want to bombard people with different numbers today. So like we take it, we look at like the result that everybody is interested in is the fuel consumption, so because it's very measurable, and it's not just measurable in terms of we can say we improved fuel consumption by 6.4%, but we're able to say, well, that equals this amount of liters saved, 1.6 million liters of fuel saved on this particular program, which also, we know the price of fuel, so we're able to say, well, that leads to a 2.2 million euro saving. Other things that we measure, like over revving, harsh braking, idle time. There's a lot of other different things that we measure in the vehicle, like the driver's use of cruise control. You can measure that data. And if he's using the cruise control more and he's using it and then flipping it off, you know that he's focusing on his driving task. So even though we're able to determine through the results that we get, like when we see harsh braking is down and the number of brakes that a driver applies is down, we know that they're driving safer. It's a harder thing to measure, like in a direct monetary measurement like there is with fuel. So that's why we pick fuel consumption as the kind of main, KPI that we look at. There's also the particular program that we were involved in. It's the Climate Action Fund program. So the big focus is on carbon dioxide. With HGVs, it's much more difficult to make the transition for HGVs over to electric to reduce carbon emissions. Electric HGVs are incredibly expensive, and they haven't really figured out the range yet. So like the focus is on reducing the fuel consumption for HGVs, reducing the amount of carbon dioxide pumped into the atmosphere. So in the program that we ran, we had 840 trucks. There was over 1,000 drivers. Then we saved the fuel. That also translates to a carbon dioxide saving. All the training for the program was delivered online. And the great thing with a system like Eurekos is you're able to target the training to the driver. So we're able to send them the training program. We're able to look at the results that that driver is getting. And if we can see that there's certain areas that they're lacking in, we're able to send them more training. So it's very flexible, and it's a ideal way to kind of communicate with people. So yeah, and we still, this program is going on. It's a 5-year program. We're about 3 years into it, so we're still measuring things. I'm glad that Dirk brought up the measurement earlier, because that's really my area. We can only measure the data that we get. Telematics, they're great. You can get any amount of information you want from a vehicle, but unfortunately, not every platform gives us all the data. This is one thing we're looking at, is what more other data we can get. One of the great things with the programs that we run is we're able to then also look at the data provided by the LMS. So Eurekos will have statistics available. We can see from their platform how learners engaged with the program. We're able to then compare that against the actual performance of those participants. So we're able to see a direct comparison of the users who actually engaged with the training, like the time they spent, the questions that they got right or wrong, how we can see through the LMS platform how do the users engage with training, and then we're able to see from the telematics data how those users' performance, fluctuated over time, and did they get better as a result of their training? Did they get worse as a result of their training? And one of the interesting statistics that we don't have it in this slide, but we get an 80% positive engagement rate. So that's what, from our programs.
And for anyone who's ever engaged with LMS data, engagement data, 80% is amazing.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
it's good, you know.
Yeah.
So
Especially with a traditionally very hard to reach target group, which we'll dive a bit deeper into as well. I mean, it's not people working in the office all day receiving an email to do a training. It's drivers who are on the road and need to be reached anywhere they are and met where they are. Absolutely.
yeah, and it's why an LMS is great for drivers, because they're very difficult to get into an office, you know, or get into.
Yes.
You have a transport company with 30 people, it's for 30 drivers. It's very difficult to get 30 drivers into an office to do training, you know.
Yeah.
And even if you do them and break them into groups of 8, 15, it's still difficult, because they're starting at 4 in the morning. They're finishing at, you know, they'll have different shifts. Different drivers will have different shift patterns. They could be some could be starting at 4 in the morning, so some could be starting at 10 at night. So an
And
LMS,
just imagine if we were to travel to an actual training facility and then spend a day or two there, how many kilometers these drivers could cover in a truck in the meantime, what that costs in money, really, compared to that, for sure, and costed fuel, you know. That's also the fuel savings, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, with an LMS, you know, you can deliver it straight to their phone. They're going to be waiting at loading bays. There's points during the day where they have to, you know, they have to stop. You know, they can't be driving for more than 9 hours in a day. So, you know, but their work shifts are usually longer than that. So they have to be stopped. They have to take breaks. They have to, you know, wait for a load to be ready or whatever it is. They'll have periods of availability, and they can go on their phone and do the course. And so it's an ideal learning medium for the transport industry.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Kevin. And of course, to your audience, if you have any questions, any insights, anything that speaks to you, please talk to us in the chat, but also we'll have some opportunities for Q&As, as well as our Ask the Experts after the 1 hour mark, where we can engage deeper into more conversation. But again, in the meantime, please feel free to leave some feedback and questions in the chat as well. And with that, moving on, let's actually take a little step back, and we'll do away with the slides for now, because this is not about slides. This is not even about numbers anymore. This is about Barry. This is about Kevin. This is about Nick and what you achieved together. And well, we've heard what you've achieved so far, but let's take a big step back to see what was your starting point. You alluded to some of the challenges you faced already at the time, where even just only having the opportunity to do in-person local training was a huge hassle, really. It was a huge organizational issue. You needed to get people in there. They had to spend time there. They could have used, driving the trucks. So yeah, please, Kevin, explain a bit more to us what your starting point was, where you were a couple of years ago, and then what made you decide to, hey, we need to change things. We need to go toward digital. We need to go towards systems and really expand our training programs.
So like we did a training program. The program that we just ran, there was a pilot program a number of years ago, back in 2017. And that was with 300 drivers. And that was all classroom based. It was difficult to organize. We got there in the end. You know, we got out, we trained all the drivers, but you kind of have one shot, you know, like you train the drivers on that day. And after that, now we coach as well. So we don't just, you know, give the driver training and then forget about them. They get constantly monitored, and they get feedback as well. So in the reports back to the drivers about their performance, they also get some tips on, you know, how to improve one particular area, a reminder to refresh their training, or what they learned in the training. So that was in the first, like, say, the CAF Mark 1. They would get a little report telling them, you know, a reminder of one of the tips that they learned in training. The beauty with the LMS is that when we're doing the report, it was the same format of reports back to the driver. We didn't just give them a little tip like, oh, don't forget to put your, you know, put your seatbelt on before you start your engine. You know, that's one little tip to save on idle time. We're actually able to link back into the LMS, so they could actually, they click on, when they get the report, they're able to click on the link, which will bring them back into the section in their learning program where they learned about idle time or how to reduce idle time. So that was one of the big changes. As well, the organization of it, as I mentioned, you know, it makes it so much easier. The measurement then of the training, like it's difficult when people attend the classroom-based training. Yeah, sure, you can do a survey. You know, there's other ways you can get training feedback, but you don't have that same level of analytics that you have available with an LMS. You know, you're not able to see exactly how trainers engaged with the program. You know, unless the trainer maybe wrote up a report and said, well, you know, John over in the corner looked a little like he was nodding off, you know, but it's, you know, I mean, the trainers don't have time for that. They don't have the time to, you know, get everyone in the classroom and see how this guy did and see how this guy did. The LMS, you can kind of do that with the LMS because you can see how they engage with it. You know that when a guy spends 2.5 hours doing a 2-hour course, and he's clicked through all the pages and he's spent a certain amount of time doing the questions. He got this question wrong. He went back, he repeated his test. You know, he's engaging with the program. But when you see somebody, you know, taking 15 minutes to run through a 2-hour program, which did happen on, you know, it was a very small fraction, but it did happen. You know that he's just talked to his friend that's after completing the course and got him to give him the answers, you know, so.
I think this is one of the big misunderstandings that we often face in training, where we often get the sense that in-person training is a lot more personal. It can be, of course, if you have the time and the resources to really interact and engage with every single member of the audience, where we even go away from training and, like you said, go toward coaching, where it's very individual, very customized. But in a standard classroom training where there's just someone presenting something to people who are still effectively anonymous to them, then we move into a lot more personalization options in a digital environment, like you described, where you can actually see how people interacted and how they performed. Absolutely. And yes, Nick, please.
Yeah, so I would just like to, because at this point, I think, Barry, you know, you, from my perspective, what has been done here is this is the holy grail. This is behavioral change. This is what you want to achieve, you know, fundamentally, because you can track all kinds of things and then you track them and then so what? But if you don't achieve the outcome, which could be anything in many different industries that you know, go beyond this, but when we are focusing on this case, then that behavioral change needs to happen at the drivers. So perhaps Barry could talk a little bit about the you know, reception at the other end, you know, from the training perspective, and you know how that worked with the drivers.
Yeah, sure, Nick. Yeah, interestingly enough, now in 2 weekends' time, we host the Irish Professional Driver Championships, and we have 21 drivers coming in from Finland with 3 world champions in their team, and we have drivers coming in from North America and from Brazil to compete, and it kind of shows the level of expertise and skill that's required and knowledge that's required to operate a vehicle efficiently and safely. And I was just listening to Kevin, and you know, and I was saying, yeah, but we were so lucky in a couple of areas. One area we're very lucky in is the smartphone. If we went back to 2016 when we started first with the CAF program, there weren't as many smartphones in operation as they're in today. And data is much cheaper and it's quicker. So we have like technology really played into our hand. We knew that you know, the saying there, if it can't be measured, it can't be managed. So in order for us to change a driver's behavior, we needed a baseline. And in our program, we developed a 12-week a 12-week, we followed the driver for 12 weeks before we engaged actually with the driver. So that allowed us to just drive normally, the way he normally drives. That allowed us to measure that, what his normal driving pattern is, behavior is. And then we would deliver the training and deliver the coaching and then measure after that and see. And that's where your 6.4% comes. But as Kevin points out too, that's an aggregate score. Some guys got 10%, 12%, and others got -2% in savings, you know, and that's just the way it is. But this system gave us a whole new set of tools. This LMS platform, when I just thinking back on what we did in the first CAF program, it was very, very difficult. When I think about it, I think we had to get guys into a room all over the country, grab them off the road, get them into a room and deliver like a generic training program. Very, very generic about like, this is your vehicles, this is how vehicles work, this is how your time is spent, this is what you spend it on, this is what delays you, this is what does this. As soon as we had this LMS platform, we didn't have to pack everything into one training session on one day. We didn't have to do that. We could identify exactly the type of vehicle and the type of issue a driver was going to encounter, and we could set up his program in the LMS platform with the information that would help him change his behavior. And that was a game changer. And the alternative to that, there's an alternative program that runs, and it's like a driver trainer goes out to a company, sits in a cab with a driver for a day, and then does some form of measurement and takes an opinion on the driver's performance after the day's training session and delivers that and said, well, this driver is doing much better. His fuel consumption will get better. Ours was completely different. And what I felt about that type of form was that, you know, if you go in for a driving test, you're going to be on your best behavior. You're going to be sitting up straight. You're going to do everything right. You're going to look in your mirrors. You're going to indicate correctly at the right time. But we needed a person in the real world. We need to see how you function in the real world and change that behavior, because we had already got people there who were just very, very good. They were just excellent at what they did. And then we had a whole bunch of people behind that, drivers behind that, who weren't very, very good. And these good guys allowed us to set the benchmark to pull the other guys up to. And that made a huge difference. We could do it instantly. And this is where this LMS thing really plays in, because my personal background isn't in that at all. Like I'm like, you know, high-vis jacket, steel toe cap boots, pair of gloves, and off driving and pulling trucks and helping drivers understand what they have to do. This gave me a whole new world, a whole new set of tools to work with. And the results, we're not astounded by the results. We wanted these results. We wanted drivers to get better. And we created a competition. We created teams. We got them involved. We got them engaged. We told them what they were. We told them they were very good at what they did. But in some areas, they could be better if they wanted to achieve a higher standard. So we were honest with them. And they accepted our honesty because the figures didn't lie. They knew themselves. You could see the figures. They could talk to their colleagues and say, why are you getting higher results on your engine idling and I'm getting lower results? And the peer support would provide the answer. They wouldn't have to go to their transport manager and complain or something like that. They knew from the data that was produced from the vehicle that couldn't be argued with. What we did know as well is that because of our background, we know the industry very, very well. And we know that I'd always see that, like, many telematics companies come out and they give that set of key performance indicators, and fuel consumption will be at the top. And the best driver in the company has the lowest fuel consumption. And we know as drivers that's not true at all. That's furthest from the truth. It's a kind of rule of thumb, but it's not factual when you get into the real game of road transport, be it passenger transport or goods transport. If I'm on multi-drop work around the city delivering appliances and I've 20 drops a day, my fuel consumption is going to go through the roof. But I could be a better driver than the driver who's driving from across a flat road for the next 400 kilometers, and he'll get great fuel consumption, but he could be like, if I drove on his run, I would get better fuel consumption than he would, because I'd have a better understanding of how the vehicle works, when to use the power, when not to use it, how to use the endurance braking systems, how not to use them. So we knew that. And they were the metrics that we directed Kevin and his team in the analysis side to fully understand, that the type of load that was being carried, the weight distribution, the number of drops that the driver had to do in a day, so we could determine the type of work he was on, whether he was on international work, regional work, local work. We could understand that. If he was on construction work, he'd have different kind of KPIs which show differently on harsh braking. So there was a lot of little things like that that needed to be considered. And it was, I suppose, having the knowledge of that industry and to be able to share that with the people doing the analysis, so they could make informed decisions on actual performance and move indicators around to suit the application of the job that was being undertaken by the driver. So overall, it was it is the next stage. It is the next stage, the next evolution in driver training. There's no doubt about that, and you'll see it coming into other sectors of the road going. People using cars and stuff like that. It's a great measure of performance, and a great way to coach people. Like, if you think about it, people who drive cars, they pass their driving test. I did my driving test, I don't know, 50 years ago. And the state has never asked me to do anything since. They've never checked my knowledge of the rules of the road. They've done nothing since.
There's no reinforcement there for any kind of behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet here now we have a system where we can reinforce the professional driver. We can reinforce his knowledge when we've changed changes in regulations. Instead of him hearing about it at a service station or from a friend over a phone or whatever, we can deliver the actual fact to him, and he'll have the trust in that system to say, well, if they say it, well, then it's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, really, really good. We're very, 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 very excited about the future of LMS and all the other technology that's coming alongside with it. I suppose we just connected two pieces of technology together, and we were just three pieces of technology: the LMS, the telematics, and the smartphone. Perfect.
We'll look into some more connections later on. But first off, thank you very much, Barry. And Nick, yes. Nick, you're still muted.
Sorry. Yes. So I actually have two questions. So you can, whatever you want to do with them. But some people, and you address this yourself, would probably think that your audience is particularly difficult to get to do something like this, because they are not necessarily sitting at a computer all day. And, yes, they have their smartphone. But did you have any kind of incentives, or did you see any obstacles getting, here? The second question that I have that you might contemplate in this relations is, how did you sell it, to the organizations behind this? Would be my other question. Thanks.
In answer to the first question, the key part for us, was that we could see a need for this. This was a genuine need, and to really get to the bottom of it, we had to kind of go and try and sell it to a provider of telematics. That's what we actually did. There was a company that were selling telematics, and we suggested to them that they would push with this with an organization here in Ireland called the SEAI. So they approached the SEAI, and they said that if we sold telematics data units into vehicles to reduce fuel consumption, would you grant aid part of that? And they did. The SEAI grant aided a third of the cost of the technology that was put into the vehicles. So the operators who were approached were offered telematics data at a third off, and they accepted it. and they were getting the training package put in as part of it. So we wrote up the training package prior to it. And that was in the first CAF program, the Climate Action Fund program. That was the first one. That's when it was developed first. The second one was just a growth on that one. But it was about making technology available to end users at an affordable cost, or a price that they could see to be good value. And there 840 of them took up the offer. And then our job was to go in and provide the training and deliver the result. In the first program, that was very difficult to deliver the result. While we did get a very good result, it was very difficult and very costly. We had to revisit companies. People hadn't turned up for training. You had to go back and get them. It was very costly. This was simple. The second phase with the technology just made it so much easier.
Meeting people where they are, both figuratively and literally.
Yeah, delivering training at a place that suits the trainee at a time that suits the trainee. You know, it just couldn't be easier.
Yes. And I feel almost like a parrot, because it comes down to this so many times, but context is key. Context for you, through the telematics, through the analytics, to understand what's the baseline, what could be a goal, how do the very efficient and experienced drivers perform, what could be a KPI for less experienced drivers, but also the context for your drivers to understand why does this training even exist, meeting them where they are, coaching them, helping them understand why this is happening, what's this program. It's all about the context, even from a business perspective, like you said. Convincing the various transport companies to actually engage in those telematics, to purchase these devices with the context from the grants, from the organizations, to really understand why this is happening, because this drives engagement so much, just this kind of context.
One of the things there, and Nick addressed it there, was like, you know, how did we incentivize drivers? And we purposely didn't incentivize them. You know, even in the first CAF program, we wanted to know, if we delivered a piece of material to a driver, it gave him a new explanation or a new understanding of how something worked, would it change his behavior? And we purposely, we knew that if we paid for him to do that, he would cheat. There's a high possibility of cheating, you know, of finding a way, an alternative solution to the goal. So we purposely just wanted to know, if somebody read something or saw something, would it change how they do something? And that's what we needed to know. Otherwise, like, for, you know, if as I mentioned before, if the fuel consumption was the holy grail of it, and you were going to give me €200 a month for saving fuel, all I'd do is pull in at the service station, take a €20 note out of my pocket, and put €20 worth of fuel into my truck. And that would mess up the telematics data. It would think like that, geez, I've loads of fuel. This fella's doing great. So
this is extrinsic motivation that might make people do what you want, but not necessarily really engage with your actual goals. Yeah.
Yeah, they're smart guys, and the path of least resistance. You know?
Yeah.
So that's something that we really wanted to understand. Now that we do know it, we can change it. Now we can happily go and incentivize people and tell our customers, listen, incentivize the guy. They're good. They're good at what they do. They're getting better. And the real savings, we're not looking at the real savings. It's not fuel consumption. That's only the top of it. The kind of like the iceberg. That's only the third above the water. It's the 2/3 below. It's the savings in accidents, in property damage, in tire wear, downtime, workshop time, repairs, component parts that shouldn't be damaged, that are overworn. You know, it's all those savings that can only be measured over a longer period of time. And there are other things that we want to bring into the mix, like, see, we've brought in just very in the road transport industry is highly regulated and highly enforced. We've got a new generation of tachograph. Tachograph is like a meter, like a taxi meter in a cab, and it measures the distance and the time. And our meter measures the distance and the time, but the latest generation of the identifies the location where the vehicle is. Every 3 hours, it stamps in a record as to where the vehicle is located, and it has like the ability now to send that data remotely. It can be picked up remotely via Bluetooth. It can be sent via SMS. It can be now sent. So having that information now we can understand, is the driver compliant with the regulations? Has he got any infringements? Can we help him with them? And we can pull that data into the scoring matrix and see like what class of a driver have we got. And not alone that can be reflective on how the management team manage the fleet. They may need help. Maybe it's not the drivers that need the help. Maybe it's the management team. And it's through that data we'll find that. And then we're able to help. Like in the course of the program we did there that you've been looking at, like we identified the change of a fuel source in a fleet. We could just, from the data, it just told us that something's happened, significant has happened here with this fleet, contacted the fleet managers and found out that they changed their fuel source. So, okay, well, that's what happened when you change that. And they told us that they'd already conducted trials. And we asked, well, how many vehicles did you use in that trial? 2. Okay, well, the 64 vehicles that you operate are telling you a different story than the 2 told you. And that was data.
It's all about the real world data.
Just real world data, yeah. You just look at it. And it's their data. It's not our it's not our data. It's not like that we make it up. It's like it's your own data is telling you that.
Yes.
You know, which
and
is,
of course it's more effort to collect and really look into the data of 64 trucks rather than 2 trial trucks. But then you can really rely on this data and you can use it for multiple things. Like you said, it's not just about your training programs, it's about all kinds of contexts that you can then drive from this data. And naturally, this applies to all kinds of industries and use cases. It's not just about trucks or drivers or transport. We've heard it before, even in this very format, where we looked at the Leipzig Transport Authority. Sure, that's also transport, but they educate their drivers for trams, for trains, for buses on how to drive safely and efficiently. We've talked with Peppermint, who are a industrial company for textile production. They struggle with engaging and keeping professionals in the company. They also need to take care of education for them. They need to actually keep knowledge within the company. They also need to measure the performance at the machines of everyone working there. They need to reach their audiences who are working at the machines, who are driving trucks, who are driving buses, who are driving trains, who are on production lines. And this is where both the context comes in, but also meeting the learners, your audience, where they are through mobile devices, like you did, but also through engaging with them directly. Like you said, your trainers, your coaches who also now develop e-learning, who now help with the context, are also experienced drivers. They understand how they behave on the road. They understand what the audience really needs. And that is so valuable and that also helps with intrinsic motivation. If I get a call to do some training by some upper echelon and who clearly has no idea what my day-to-day looks like, I am not motivated. But when I see, okay, this training is actually designed for me by people who have the same kind of experience, that's motivation. And that is not extrinsic motivation to then pour in some fuel from your own pocket. This is intrinsic motivation because I feel heard, I feel seen, and I feel part of a community and work together with my peers.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we were involved in another project that was like to develop a device that would identify driver impairment. So people with driver fatigue or alcohol or drugs in their system. It would impair their driving. And we were involved with an organization there, and they came up with a solution. And then we simply asked them, using the telematics data and your AI capabilities, could you identify good driving behavior, very good driving behavior, and excellent driving behavior? And they said, yeah, that wouldn't be a problem at all. So we were kind of really excited about that. That's the next phase. But the one thing you're saying there, and it's very, very true, Benjamin, is like content is king. Content, if you've got the right content, like, and it really speaks to the trainee, like he fully, you're giving him something that he had a kind of an understanding of, but not a very clear understanding of, and you make it clear. That's magic content. That's the magic stuff. And the magic stuff that we use are like, you know, and it's real simple magic. It's nearly sleight of hand. We take the owner's manual out of the truck, take the cellophane off it, digitize it, and stick it on his phone. You know, we make it so easy for him. Like what he sees, the vehicle he's looking at on the screen is the vehicle that he drives. That's
It's like, and that makes it so much more accessible too, just lowering the barriers to access. You don't need to go to a training facility. You don't need to like flip through a physical book. You can actually engage with a search function. That's the most simple thing in the world, but it helps make things, knowledge, and also reinforcement training accessible to everybody.
Yeah, it makes it very, very easy. And as I say, it's personalized. They can't come up with the unconscious excuse, well, that's not the type of model of truck I drive. I drive this other one, so mine is different. We can't do that with our one. No, you give him exactly what he drives there. That's your truck. That's how that works. Like some of them didn't know, like you might be familiar with your DPF filter and your regeneration. Well, heavy commercials have DPF filters and regeneration buttons, and drivers didn't know how to use them. Never used them. Had to wait till the warning came on the dashboard to say, listen, you need to regenerate before they'd regenerate. When this could be simply done during their everyday operation. They could do an active regeneration. And we just took out the video from the manufacturer, put it into the LMS, and pinged it off to a group who weren't doing it in the one company. It was their truck, their switch. That's how you do it. This is why you do it. And we identify with them like a health reason why you should do it this way. And we got
this way you create the awareness that is necessary to even drive engagement in the first place.
Yeah.
Engagement is nothing without an awareness first, an awareness of the offers on hand, but also an awareness of the context again. Why is this relevant to me? And making it relevant, actually making it relevant to them, because it is their device, it is personalized content really. And we'll actually jump into that in a moment as well on how the future can help us a lot more at driving this personalization and this engagement as well. But first, Nick, yes.
If we just have a moment, I would just like to maybe what Gencat and the team behind Barry and Kevin has been doing is actually, like I said, the Holy Grail. This is what everybody tries to do. So what is it that's going on? Yeah, it's personalized. Number two, there's something outside of the LMS that you are measuring. You can't just measure your training from within an LMS, no matter which LMS it is. So you gotta have at the other end that behavioral change that you actually do this for. And it doesn't matter if it's a professional training company on this topic or the other topic. You know, when I do my training, I expect an outcome at the other end. Whether I'm better at speaking a language, whether I'm a better product manager, whether I'm able to, do some equipment, manage some equipment better or whatever it is, I need to be able to measure after a while how my training has been impacted. And what Gencat has also done is, instead of doing this, if you take people into a room and then you give them this training and then you don't see them again, so you just deliver. It's like a lecture. You just deliver a lot of information to them, and then what? Yeah. So what you have also done is you have distributed this over a period, and then you keep updating them over a period until you have reached a certain goal. Yeah. And any kind of industry, any kind of topic, you need to figure out when you are doing this training, the outcome that I expect, how do I measure that outcome? And I think you also said, maybe you want to elaborate on it, but I think you also said you started simple. Maybe it was the fuel consumption, because that was what you knew there was so much more, but that was something that you could easier, communicate maybe even and measure, because that was at the top of the mind. But maybe you can elaborate on that. But I'm saying that you will be able to do this across everything, anything. You might not be able to have as many data that are strictly bound into a technical system that Barry and Kevin had, but you will be able to measure it in other ways, asking the managers, checking in with the business. But you need to find those data, not just the people who are doing the training, but also, how are they behaving now in at their job, to make sure that, to establish the connection between the relationship between the data that you have and the data, in the LMS, and the data that you actually can get from the real world scenario. You need to put in the real world scenario and pull data from there. I don't know, Kevin, if you have any, on top of this.
Well, I was just going to say, actually, with the drivers, we actually didn't really report back fuel consumption to the drivers, because it wasn't what we thought that would motivate them. That went back to the managers, it went back to the company owners, it went back to the external, the external agencies monitoring the data. The drivers, we picked other things. We picked the things that were under their control, like braking, harsh braking, idle time, another thing called over revving. But it's very, we're very limited, even in transport, where we have access to lots of different information, because there's a device in the vehicle that's reading the ECU in the vehicle. There's still a lot of data we're missing. There's still a lot more data that we'd like to get. And that's kind of where we're going in the future, is what other data that we can get that can, help us improve our reporting back to the drivers, our coaching, our analysis, and marry that all up with the learning system, with technology. Like as Barry said, we're able to connect different areas of technology, and there's new stuff coming out now. AI, we haven't, we've worked a little bit on AI, like that program, the Fitness to Drive, and we want to bring that into our programs now. So it's very exciting where it's going and where it could go.
And all of this brings us back even to Kirkpatrick, which we see here. The reaction, the learning, level 1, level 2. This is what we can see in the LMS, that people engage with the content, that they complete the content. But the impact, the results, level 3s and 4, the change of behaviors, the influence on performance, the business results, those happen outside of the LMS. But of course, the LMS is the platform to actually deliver all of this engaging and personalized content. And like you just alluded to, Kevin, as well, the future obviously needs more of level 3 and level 4. And it also needs more integration of various systems, of various measures, of playing with AI naturally, and also allowing the LMS to engage in levels 3 and 4 as well. And this is, I'll give it to Nick again for a moment to take a look at not just what Gencat are planning to do in general with AI, with new tools, but also what a modern and engaging LMS can do to really drive these business results in the future by integrating various systems and just having a holistic view of the situation.
Yeah, so let me first say that, at least just to continue a little bit along, if I was a training company of any kind, I would want to make sure that I can prove that my training works. That the desired outcome, whatever that is, so that's like the 3 and 4, has had the effect that I wanted. So any organization that is trying to do and monetize or prove this, they need to ask themselves, so when you have done this, what would you be able to do? And this is what you need to check. Sometimes, and that you can only check in real life, afterwards. Maybe you can only reach the people because it can become difficult to get access to the data. So maybe you can only reach the people that actually, that you actually trained, for example. But then you can use features to ask questions after a period of time to establish whether or not the objective was reached, And then you can do that over a longer period of time if you plan that. And the LMS can feature things like this. On top of that, you might want to engage with the organizations that they are from, or the managers, depending on how big a, depending on the reach. Like you had this connection to the telematics, Barry and Kevin here, people at the other end, and you would be able to, to contact with them and some other organizations. In other scenarios, you have a parent organization that have bought you for a reason to do or deliver some training. You would engage with them to get some data. And this data then validates, when you make the correlation between what you're doing and, what you are basically, providing the world. So I think that's incredibly important that you do. I see a future where, you are all seeing AI coming in, generative AI coming in everywhere. And I see a future where you have a lot of foundational data that you still need to do. Knowledge needs to be there. A lot of the time, this is proprietary knowledge that you have embedded into your system. So it's your own personal IP. You need to be able to take this and then deliver this in multiple different ways. Today, we are delivering the training programs that we are designing on our own. And like Barry said, we discovered that there is a gap here. So, we're going to send him this training. But curated training, so that means something that is created from a skeleton of information that is automatically distributed in an ecosystem. So we consider the LMS a hub. It's basically a knowledge hub. And the knowledge hub should be able to leverage this by personalization and deliver different outcomes of the same training that you have already created, like your formal compliance training that will still be relevant, but be able to deliver on those outcomes and provide, smaller sections or recommendations that will be generated automatically. Or based, when I say automatically, of course, designed by people who know what they're talking about. So initially, this would be, an experienced trainer who would help define what is it that we are looking for, and then providing these inputs back. This slide is not exactly this, but I will comment on it a little bit later, maybe in the upcoming session, or the next hour. I don't know if everybody is staying or if you had a plan, Benjamin, to have a QA round in general right now.
Yes. We'll move into that in a moment. Thank you very much, Nick.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I have one last question for Barry and Kevin, just for a little bit of context for all of us. You had your in-person training going on. You noticed the struggles, the issues. You decided, okay, we need to change things. We need to go toward the digital. Can you just very briefly, as a bit of a goodbye, essentially, describe to us your road from, hey, we need something. We might need an LMS. We're not really sure how digital learning works these days, to actually moving forward with an LMS, with Eurekos, and implementing the system.
Yeah, well, we knew we wanted an LMS. Like Barry had kind of identified that was the next way to deliver training. You know, for when we were scaling up the program to the level that it was being scaled up to, you know, it wasn't possible to do it by, you know, the way the first program had been run with the classroom training. He decided to use an LMS. Asked me would I get on board. We went over to London to a trade show, a learning. I think they call it Learning Technologies. We met a lot of different. We've seen a lot of different systems over there. We narrowed it down to kind of 3 systems, I think, that were the best. I mean, 2 of them were kind of multinational systems, big. Like when we were at the learning show, like we're just talking to the rep, you know, and you know, they were kind of explaining their system, but it was like, oh yeah, you need it. You know, it was just, we knew they weren't, like these people that we were talking to weren't the decision makers, you know. And then we met Nick and Anders, and I mean, they kind of got what we were looking for straight away, you know. Like they were kind of like, you know, business owners, kind of like myself and Barry. They kind of understood what it was to come, you know, they understood things from the kind of like the SME perspective. You know, and yeah, I mean, and we just got on really well with them as well, you know. So so that's
so imagine meeting people where they are, right?
Yeah. You know, we had a bit of a laugh with them. So no, it was a, you know, we took it from there. I mean, we didn't, you know, it took a little while to get set up on the system. You know, we still did evaluate those other systems that we had looked at, but in the end, we decided that Eurekos, it was much more dynamic. You know, they were going to be able to, we weren't just going to be another number to Eurekos. Like if there was something that we wanted changed, or there was some issue we were having, we knew we were going to get that level of support. You know, so that's really kind of was our journey. And then Eurekos helped us, you know, get everything set up and get our system up and running. And yeah, we haven't looked back. So only looking forward.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Barry, Kevin, and of course, Nick. Now, are there any questions from the audience before we end the first part? And then, of course, we can also, we're very happy to engage with any further questions or discussions. Are there any questions for now? Okay. We will stop the recording at this point, and this is the end of essentially our first half of our webinar proper. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.